Hey, what's up you guys? It's Simon. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to do an eye tutorial because someone suggested it on Instagram, but I felt like I wasn't really good with like wording exactly what my process was, so I figured doing a video would do it a little more justice and maybe make a lot more sense than just the little slideshow that I did for my Instagram. So I'm just gonna get straight into it. The first thing, obviously, that you have to do when you're drawing eyes is to start with the head, and normally I always sketch in red, but for clarity's sake and to show you the different pieces, I'm gonna be sketching in a few different colors. So the base of the head is just gonna be black, and I always sketch with the marker tool inside just because usually when I paint I like the sketch to be a little bit softer. I don't like really harsh edges, and I feel like when I use the pen that it always comes out looking really sharp, but when I use the marker it's always like a really smooth transition. So I always use the marker, but you can use whatever tool you want. You can use the brush, the water, the airbrush, whatever you normally sketch with. That is fine. It doesn't matter. So I start with the head, obviously, and then the next thing I go into is spacing, and by that I mean basically trying to map out where the eyes are. So I learned in a tutorial a while ago, I can't remember whose. If I find it, I'll link it down below, but basically it taught me that the way to place the eyes, I'm gonna do this first part in a bright red, is that your eyes begin a half eyes width away from the face. So if this is your whole entire eye, half of this is where your eyes begin. Okay, so half of that is where your eyes begin. So you draw that half semicircle. I usually draw it immediately on both sides just so that I know exactly where they begin. And then you go straight into the next part, which is drawing another, I guess it's not necessarily a circle, it's more like an oval, but you know what I mean, like a general eye size. And then I'll draw that on one side for now, because the next step is, I also learned from that same tutorial that your eyes are also another eyes width apart. Like every time I hear that, I take my fingers and I poke my eyes like in the corners, and then I try to put it in the middle, and it's pretty accurate. For me, at least. For some people, it might not be, so this is an optional step. Like, maybe, I know, like, speaking of, like, Sims or something, you can make their eyes closer together or farther apart. It all depends on who you're making, but, like, for, like, I guess, generally speaking, your eyes are usually one eyes width apart. So, draw another little circle. And yes, I do draw these little circles every time I draw eyes. I don't know why. It's like a huge habit. Ugh. I hate when I bump stuff. So draw that and then go straight into the next eye. The next step is to figure out what shape of eye that you're doing. So for someone like me, this varies depending on the type of character that I'm drawing. So Remy, he's that character you guys saw with the little white tips and the choker. He would have a different eye shape than, say, who else? Oliver. Oliver would have a different eye shape than Remy would. I draw Remy's generally a lot sharper. He tends to have like more of like, I guess like a natural wing, if that makes sense. I always draw him with like a little bit of a thicker lash, things like that. But Oliver, he has sort of like more of like a, not like an almond, but more like kind of circular. Like he's a little bit more anime looking than Remy. So just figure out exactly what type of character that you're trying to draw, and then draw the eye shape around that. So I'm just gonna clean this up real quick. I'm gonna start extending that because that is not the right shape. Oh, wow, I'm so good at this. Make that a little bit longer. That was too short. Okay. So when I'm determining the eye shape, normally I don't do this, but for the tutorial's sake, I will have to like reduce the opacity on this layer just because like there's a whole bunch going on here. When I have the when I'm normally sketching, I sort of do this. It's more like in my sketching process, I sketch like 3 or 4 times. I don't know if you guys have seen from past videos, but I do like several sketch layers. But the first one will always have like all of these mapping points just so that it's easier for me to place things. But for tutorial's sake, I'm just gonna do one sketch layer and get back to you guys in a second. Alright, so we are back. So, one thing I did that you guys saw me do was, I like to do this trick where if I want the eyes to be symmetrical, I will copy and paste it because it is the best thing ever in the world when you're working digitally. It saves so much time, and also, y'all know we can never match the other eye, okay? It's so hard. But digitally we can, so that is one plus. But I do want to say, if you do plan to copy paste that, do it before you draw. I'm gonna get the part of the eye wrong and I'm gonna say iris, but it might not be this thing. Draw this after you flip it, because otherwise they're going to be cross-eyed and you're going to mess it up and you're going to erase a bunch of parts of the eye that you copied over and they're not going to match anyway. So when you're doing that, make sure you just copy the base of the eye. Don't draw the iris. Wait until you're done because it's going to look wonky. Trust me, I've done it like a bajillion times. It always looks weird. Anyways, so the next step that I mentioned in the tutorial that I'm actually not going to do for this video was I mentioned that you can clean up your sketch, and that is because I know I'm not like, I know my style of drawing, I suppose, is sort of common. Obviously there's a lot of people that paint out there, but a lot of people tend to do line art even when they are painting. I don't like to do line art. I like to just go straight into my base colors and draw straight away. But I know if you like to do line art, if line art's your thing, that would be your technical next step before we get into what I'm about to do. But because 99% of the time I do not do line art, I'm just gonna go straight in. And that is, I believe, to choose your base color. So I would start by selecting, obviously I'm just gonna put in a skin color just to make this look a little bit more normal. That is orange. What a Cheeto. Okay, let's try that again. Much better. Make that a little bigger. So, and then this is the part that made me really want to do a video, because I could not convey what I was talking about when I was talking about choosing your color. So once I finish this, I will show you guys what I mean. Okay. So the first step is to pick your base color, and the base color doesn't really matter. You can start literally wherever you want on the color wheel. So I'm gonna pick a weird color. I think in the tutorial I did like a sort of like bluish, tealish, purple color. So I'm gonna go, let's go, it was almost orange for the skin, so I might as well do orange for the eyes. So start out literally anywhere and put that down. And then I also normally at this point would do, since I sketch in red, I would change the sketch layer to multiply. But since it's black, it's already gonna be kind of dark, and I'm just gonna leave it like that just because I don't want to make it darker than it already is. You could also, like, if you do sketch in a different color but you want it to be red when you paint over, at least inside, I don't know how to do this in Photoshop, but there's this little button right here that looks like a transparent like layer, and if you click that, I'm pretty sure this is what locks opacity. I haven't touched sign a little bit. I've been using my iPad. Yeah, okay, so this locks opacity. You can change the color, and then I would set it to multiply, and it would make it like a deeper sort of red. But like I said, for the tutorial, I'm just gonna leave it alone. So your base color, you start there, and then I mentioned that I never choose black for the iris. If your style is more anime and you like to do that, draw black for the iris. Do it. I don't care. I'm not policing you. I only really do black for the iris if I'm doing Copics, just because I feel like I don't have enough dark tones in Copics to convey an iris. But when I'm painting, what I really like to do is I'll take the base color, I'll select it, and then what I was talking about in the tutorial was I will slide it down in the bar, or I also said to the left if you're working in a square. So you slide it that way. Oh wait, did I say right? Oh, okay, it's to the left on, it's to the left on side, but it's to the right on Procreate and perhaps Photoshop. I believe for the squares it is to the right, but on Photoshop, oh my goodness, on Sai it is in this circle to the left. You push it downwards, and then I'll drag it down and to the left again to get a darker hue that complements the original tone. Why isn't it coloring? Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Make sure you're on the right layer when you do this step. So then I'll take the darker color and I'll set that as the pupil, and as you can see, it adds like a lot of like cool like color variation. Like I never would have like just automatically chosen this color on my own, but I'm glad I did because it's a very pretty color. So I do that, and then I draw the pupils out, and then obviously like usually if they're looking forward, their pupils are going to be to the center. But if you're drawing like different directions, obviously it'll be like closer to this edge of the eye or this edge of the eye, and the iris is going to move with it. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to do it drawing forward so I can get every detail and make things as least confusing as possible with my horribly confusing voice. Okay, so the next step is to highlight the eye, not like with regular highlights, but like highlight the iris itself. And for that, I do the same thing that I would normally do with the pupil, but instead I'll push it up, and then to up again, and to the right again. And then I usually apply this with a brush, just because I want the edges of this to sort of be very soft. And then you can see that I'm smudging the pupil a little bit. That doesn't matter as long as you get to, like, as long as you leave enough area exposed that you can just click it and color over it again. So I do that. And then once I have this set, sometimes I literally will just leave it like this and then like blend in the edges. Sometimes I'll spend a really long time painting each and every like little stroke of the iris, so sometimes I'll like actually do like this sort of thing but with like a thinner brush. But just for today, I'm just going to blend out the edges, make it look a little bit softer, and then I will show you guys how to finalize it, or I guess the step right before you finalize it. Okay, so now the last thing you need to do is, like I said in the tutorial, I said to find a shade that you think complements the overall tone of the image. So say like he's got this orange eye and like, I don't know, maybe he's got like brown hair or red hair. It's generally going to be a warmer toned image. So, wrong. The answer would be a cool tone shadow, because I watched, why can't I remember any of these tutorials? I think it might have been Eric Anthony, but it could have been somebody else that said in their video that if you draw a warmer toned image, you want cooler toned shadows, and if you draw a cooler toned image, you want warmer toned shadows. So since this is orange, I would aim for probably going by complementary colors, maybe like a blue or a purple, something like that. But don't like use this. Don't do this. This looks bad. Unless you're going for like a super saturated image, like, I don't know, some sci-fi sort of look. Don't do that. Instead, you want to go for more of like a desaturated but still very blue toned color. I usually lean towards grays just because, like, growing up, obviously, I was into a lot of animes, and you'll see in a lot of manga and a lot of, even, like, animated animes. Wow. Obviously, it's anime. Anyway, a lot of animated, shows, I guess, that they will, highlight. Wow, my brain. They'll shade the top of the eye with a gray. So I will still technically lean towards grays, but I always do it sort of like a toned version of a gray. And then for this, I just sort of slap it like right on the top of the eye, nothing special. And then I change the layer to multiply, and then you can see how it still brings the original color through, but it also looks really, really harsh. So what I'll normally do is I'll either get an eraser or I'll take the brush, and my favorite thing about Sai is that you can just pick your brush and push this little button and it turns into an eraser that looks exactly like your brush. So you don't have any weird harsh edges that don't look like the rest of your drawing. It's gonna look the same. And then if you're not liking this, back it up, and the water brush is your best friend. So take that brush, and you don't have to use it as an eraser, but I do sometimes. So I'm just gonna leave it like that, and then I usually like to keep it a little bit bigger just because I feel like it keeps the edges softer. Anytime I go for anything smaller, it tends to look sort of weird. So I will blend those edges out, and then if you still feel like it looks too harsh, it might be because it got blended down, so make sure you push a little bit more, use a little bit more pen pressure down in these sorts of areas. Bring that color back into the eye towards the bottom. And then if you still feel like it's a little bit harsh, like if I had more shading on here, I probably wouldn't mind it as much, but I feel like just because I only have the eyes painted that it looks a little harsh, just lower the opacity a little bit, and then push this button to merge the whole layer down, not just the image, so you don't have to delete an empty layer because it's annoying. And then you're almost done. So this is the very last part, and I forgot to mention one step in the tutorial, and that is also, this is where I add details. So I don't do it in every image, but I like to, when I'm painting, add the waterline. So I'll take like a pencil usually, or like a brush, and I will add in the waterline, sketch that. And then I don't know what this is called, like the tear duct, I guess. I'll add that in there as well. And then this is also where I add highlights. So I'll add those, and then I'll tend to draw like a little bit of a darker thing, sort of. And I don't copy paste this, I'm just only drawing it on the one eye. Here, let me zoom in actually, just so that you guys can get a little better feel for this step. So I'll take some darker shades so that it gets like a little bit of a like obviously a sense of like depth and things like that. I don't usually go this dark. I'll probably blend these out. I just want to show you guys like exactly where these details would go. And you don't have to do this step, obviously, especially because like my style is one of those that's like a little bit on the like not so realistic spectrum. But sometimes like if I feel like it needs a little oomph, I definitely will add stuff like this. And then obviously your waterline and your tear duct are wet, so they have highlights as well. It's usually right along this rim and towards these corners. And then also when I'm painting, these edges get super smoothed out. I'm just not doing it because it takes forever and we would not be able to get that done in a little tutorial. But wow, brain. But for today's sake, these are technically soft. Pretend they're soft. And then the final step is highlights, and I always go straight white. I know in art class they tell you to never use straight white or straight black, but they're wrong, okay? Like if I put like, I don't know, an orangey white, you're not gonna get this same like drama that you would a straight up, that's a huge brush, straight up like bright white highlight. Like I love this. Okay, not to mention like I've seen people's eyes before. I've seen when their eyes get highlighted by like a window or something. It's white. Like you don't have to pretend. It's okay. It's okay to use white. It's okay to use black. Just don't shade with black unless like you're drawing something gray. Just, it's okay to use white and black. Also, watercolor purists, it's okay to use white and black, okay? It's okay to buy those. It's okay. It's just art, okay? Have fun. Do whatever you want. I highlight with white. Sometimes I highlight with the color, but my main highlight is always gonna be white. Anyways, off topic. Back on track. So, highlight, add as many as you want. But remember that your highlight is always going to be symmetrical. It's not going to be like this, because that means that you have two different light sources and one somehow is not reaching this eye. So just remember when you're doing highlights, it's going to be the same on both eyes. So if I had 3 here, it's going to have 3 here. If I have a line here, it's going to have a line here. So just remember, no matter how many you add, no matter what you do, it's gonna be symmetrical. So don't go too nuts if you don't feel like drawing it on the other eye, because they're gonna look exactly the same. So one more little touch I like to do, especially if the shadow does come down a little bit more, if I'm still noticing it's too gray, your eyes are wet, obviously. So there's a little bit of a shine on the actual I don't know what this is called, like the white of your eye. There's a little bit of light on there, so you can add some flecks here and there as well. You're probably not going to be able to see them once you get zoomed out of your whole image, but I feel like it makes them pop just a little bit more, especially when I'm being picky and I feel like it's not coming out how I want to. But there you guys go. I hope this cleared up the I guess subject a little bit better than the tutorial on my Instagram did. If you guys have any more questions, wow. Okay. If you guys have any more questions, let me know down in the comments below. I would be more than happy to help you guys out. And thank y'all so much for watching this video. Make sure to hit subscribe. I am already at 110. That's crazy. You guys are amazing. I love you so much. So make sure you share this video with a friend so that other people can join this little thing that I keep not actually coming up with the name to call you guys. But it will happen. Okay. Anyways, I love you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And thank you, Mr. Airplane, for interrupting this video. I love you guys so much, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!